We got work to do.
Welcome to Highway to Hell, a supernatural podcast. I'm Kristen.
And I'm Christine.
And this week we're discussing Season 6, Episode 1, after our Hellatus. This is Exile on Main Street. Which
Man.
I think is referring to I had it here, a Led Zeppelin song.
Oh.
No, just kidding. A Rolling Stones LP from 1972.
Oh, okay.
But I like the reference. I think it works. Dean definitely is kind of an exile on normal suburban Main Street. He's a little different.
That's for sure.
Yeah, different from Sid. But yeah, season 6, man. We've done it. We've gone through 5 seasons, and really the core theme of Supernatural as a show. Crip K.
Oh my god! It's because we just talked about that. It's
I know.
Stuck in your head now.
I'm still thinking about that pronunciation. Jesus. Kripke is gone as showrunner, but fun fact, he's still around. He's still a very hands-on executive producer. So he's
good.
not totally gone. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's good. Makes for a smoother transition.
Yeah, I think, just to kind of help out Sarah Gamble a bit. And then I did read that he actually wrote the season finale. So he's not completely gone from us. And I think that kind of changes my perspective a little bit on season 6, because I don't know. I think, just like with Buffy and Joss Whedon handing over showrunner to, oh, Jesus, what's her name? But basically, I think he was a hands-on executive producer also on that. And so it's very similar to this. I think there's a lot of like fault that's given to these two women who like took over these really big shows after, a successful run.
Yeah.
But it's not like Marty Noxon, that's her name. I don't know why I forgot that.
Okay.
But it's not like,
it's not all on them.
Yeah, it's not all on them. There's a lot of hands in the pot, right? And it's not like the showrunner is the only person who's like contributing to the story and
right,
all of that. I mean, that being said, like, what are your first impressions of season 6? Like, do you see a difference?
Yes, I do. I do see a difference. I don't know. I honestly have some really mixed feelings about this episode and the way I see it going so far. So I could definitely see how a hardcore fan would finish up season 5 and come back and see this episode and feel a little bit like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
Because I'm kind of feeling that way.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm kind of feeling that way too.
I feel kind of bad about that, but it's very, very different. And I don't know how I feel about it yet. I think it's going to take me a little while to wrap my head around what they're trying to do here because, first of all, just the way that this episode was set up, like the premise of it and what ends up happening, like does not make sense to me. It did not make sense to me. I couldn't believe that, all of that Dean ends up being aware of Sam being alive and all of this stuff after a whole year has passed. Like, all of that just says to me that like Sam is a completely different character. This is not our Sam.
Hmm. Hmm. And do you feel that that's like unpurposeful? I
No, not
guess.
necessarily, but it's hard to swallow.
Hmm.
Um I don't know that it's supposed to be that way because a lot of things apparently changed, right? Like even uh the baddies, like the demons and all of the supernatural creatures are behaving differently. Um so it's sort of like the world has been like everything's cool and it's been saved, but it's kind of been reset. Like things are a little bit everything is a little different. Um So that may have been intentional, but I also don't really like if this is the new Sam, I don't really like him so far. I don't know.
Yeah, he's definitely a little bit different. Um and I don't know exactly how to talk about him because there's without giving anything away. For example, I just I he's noticeably different. That's I think we'll talk more about that like throughout the episode because he's very unemotional, for example. We see that.
Mhm. Mhm.
Um but back to like what you said about the monsters, I was also very confused about all of that because we've seen jinns before. I mean, obviously that's the whole point of this where like the jinns are now coming back to get Sam and Dean,
Right.
but and in season 2 they had killed one, but they look different. Um,
Mhm.
and yeah, they're working as a pack, and I think in season 2, I want to say we had like thought that it's just kind of like a soul creature working by their on their own. It's not like the Jinn have a family. I don't know. Maybe I'm making all of that up, but there's something to that. It's a little bit different for sure.
And I think it was even like the way that they look, right? Like they talk in the episode about how they're not like regular jinns because they can look like anybody.
Yeah, it's kind of like almost like a
Yeah.
shapeshifter or something like
Yeah.
that, which
So that's a
yeah, we
new
did not
feature.
see last time.
And they just like operate differently. So I got the impression that it was like, I guess God uh reset everything, but kind of shuffled the cards around.
Hmm.
So,
Yeah.
you saying that Sam being different could be intentional, I feel like would be part of uh that situation.
So this is a theory. This is a Christine theory that
Yeah,
we're getting
totes.
here.
Tote.
Wow. Okay.
Totally.
We're getting into it
To
already.
totally.
um, but yeah, I definitely felt, I think I warned you beforehand, right? And on the podcast and outside of it, that season 5 is kind of the peak of Supernatural. I really think that. I think a lot of people would agree.
Mhm.
It's just so beautifully done. It's just the even though season 1 and season 2 definitely have issues, the whole package is good. It's consistent. It's I mean not consistent, but it's cohesive. That's what I mean.
Right. Right.
And after season 5 and with this episode, I think especially, I kind of feel like they ended things, they wrapped it up in a really neat tiny bow, and then they're like, okay, now how do we unravel this bow? And I feel
Mhm.
like they're kind of struggling with that in this episode.
Mhm.
Um as we'll kind of get into that. But
Mhm.
no, I think we're on the same page as far as the episode goes. I think there's a lot to talk about here. There's a lot here.
Yeah, there is a lot here.
Hmm.
And we'll break it down, but those were just kind of my initial thoughts about it overall.
Yeah.
I'm I'm still, yeah, I don't know, trying to figure out where I fall.
Yeah, no, definitely. Well, and so I guess if you guys don't remember, we've kind of introduced what this episode is about. I don't have much more in the IMDb description, just that when something evil threatens Lisa and Ben, Dean starts hunting it and is shocked to discover Sam is back from hell.
Mm.
So we've gone into a little bit more beyond that, but written by Sarah Gamble, so written by the showrunner, and directed by Phil Segricia. So I mean, I definitely have good things to say about the directing.
Mhm.
Um,
Me
I
too.
think, well,
Actually, that
especially
was
the first part.
yes.
Oh,
I know we're thinking about the same, that montage kind of thing.
yes,
Oh,
so good.
so good.
Yeah, it was really beautifully done. And it gave me a lot of good hopes for like the episode.
Yeah.
And I think it's the second half that kind of didn't do so well.
Mhm.
As far as production info, so as I've mentioned, Kirby did not return as showrunner. He's serving as a hands-on executive producer, though. And I did read a little bit just to kind of give us a little like idea of what we're going to be seeing in season 6. Sarah Gamble says that she really wanted season 6 to focus on the brothers' relationship, and of course, like I mean, every season is really focusing on the brothers' relationship, but like beyond that, it says that the season steered towards the format of the early seasons with lots of meat and potatoes or close-ended episodes and a season-long story arc to weave in. So I think we've seen that change, right, in season 4 and season 5 especially, where all of a sudden it's very heavily focused on the season long arc, the quote unquote big bad, of defeating Lucifer and stopping the apocalypse, and with kind of like these close ended episodes weaved in. And it's doing this switch again, and I wonder if that's because we don't really have a big bad right now, right? I mean, so far we haven't seen anything to that effect.
Right.
Um, Lucifer's locked back up in his cage. Um, we don't know what the hell is going on with heaven. We haven't seen Cass yet, so we don't know if there's any issues there.
Mhm.
Um, but kind of going back to the like, okay, everything's wrapped up in a neat, tiny little bow. So what could possibly go wrong? You
Mhm.
know.
Mhm.
So it's kind of trying to go back to the basics, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with that. And there's not really anywhere else they could go, I think, after what we saw at the end of season 5. They kind of have to start over.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. I have lots of thoughts. Oh my god. Because okay, let me just get this out. I feel like they are trying to really start over and do something with the Campbell family, right? They're trying to say,
Right.
okay, how can we take what the show is and expand it more? And I feel like they were sitting in a room one day and they were like, got it. Family. Let's go back to the family business. That's the core
Mm.
theme of this show. And they were like, okay, come on guys, what's next? So Mary had, she was part of this hunter family. How do we expand that thought? And they were like, okay, let's bring more hunters in, similar to how like in season 2 they try to bring more hunters in and then they drop that off. And we're like, okay, no, let's just focus on Sam and Dean. So I don't know. It's like it's kind of like they're trying to retread that territory and expand it a little bit more about this whole family business.
Yeah.
A-
Yeah, I think you're
And
onto something with that train of thought.
Yeah. And the Campbells just don't work for me.
Well, so far they don't work for me either because they're all kind of dicks.
Yeah, they're really big dicks, a bag of dicks.
Yeah, a big old bag of dicks.
um, but they're also not very memorable to me. I
Mm.
don't I don't who's who?
Yeah,
Like
no, I don't know. I don't even know.
Glenn, Mark, and what's the other one? I don't.
I don't know. Tweedledum.
So I think that's part of it.
Yeah, that's fair.
Um, but I think I wanted to read that because I think that kind of points to how the season will operate a bit and um, give us an idea of what we're going to be seeing.
Yeah.
Um, so I guess to start the episode, unless you have anything else besides that, Christine.
We did have a couple songs that I could mention.
Oh yeah.
We had well, one later on where Dean and Sid are at the bar. The song that's playing in the background is Neighbors by Swank. But I am mainly going to talk about the song from the beginning, which was Beautiful Loser by Bob Seger. And that was during that awesome montage that we loved. And it's a great song. It was the title track on his 1975 studio album, also called Beautiful Loser. And Wikipedia says that the song is about people who set their goals so low that they never achieve anything. Bob Seger got the idea for the song from Beautiful Losers, a novel written by Leonard Cohen. And contrary to what many believed, the song is not about himself. It took over a year for him to finish it, and Seeger wrote 3 or 4 versions of the song before settling on the final version.
Wow.
I know. But it's a great song, and I think it goes really well with this one. It's all bittersweet, you know. I think what we're kind of getting from the whole beginning of the episode and the setup is that it's like, we know it can't last. But Dean is having his apple pie life, and he's a beautiful loser. And I was also thinking too, you were talking about like Exile on Main Street, you know, that reference, and him being kind of like exiled from the point of view of like everybody who's on Main Street, like he's different. And I was thinking about it the other way around, like he's exiled from the hunter world and put into the apple pie life by everybody who are hunters, and they don't, you know, they've kicked him out, kind of.
Right.
So he's getting it on both sides. He's just a misfit, I guess, right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he sure is, and it's definitely the tables have turned between these two,
Yeah,
um,
that's for sure.
in a big way. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But that's all I had.
Cool. I really like that song. Um, I thought it really worked for the scene and this beautiful montage that we get.
Hmm.
Um, and well, right before we get it, we do get like our usual episode recap, but interestingly, it's like really short. It's like 15 seconds short. It's just showing 1 year ago. So we already get the fact that this is happening a year later, this episode. Um, and we see that Sam gave himself up to save the world and defeat Lucifer, and that Dean promised Sam he'd commit himself to a normal life. And we see that sort of begin. We see, Sam uh, back from the dead, or back from Lucifer's cage all of a sudden, looking at Dean eating family dinner. And that's really the last shot we had, the last image we had at the end of season 5.
Hmm.
And so we begin this episode with Dean waking up right before his alarm clock goes off, which is 7 a.m. Pretty early for Dean. So
Yeah,
already
what?
it's like, okay, this is different, a different kind of life. he's woken up in bed next to Lisa, but there's still that remaining anxiety we can see that Sam is in hell. And it kind of gives the impression that everything we saw as far as like the episode recap is like him like thinking about it or dreaming about it maybe.
Right.
Um, okay, and then we get this beautiful montage. The episode intercuts between Dean's normal life and his old life, kind of giving that juxtaposition. So he's making breakfast in his new life, and in his old life, instead of salting eggs, he's salting and burning ghost ashes. Um, he's opening up his toolbox in his normal life, and versus opening up the Impala trunk where there's like weapons and guns, he is working construction versus using construction tools to chop off vampires' heads.
That was my favorite. He uses that
Yes,
saw because when that episode happened and he cut off the vampire's head, was that
that was Gordon.
Gordon's head? I couldn't remember his name. Fucking Gordon's head with the power saw. And it was so intense and gory. And then it's like juxtaposed with him like a hard hat on and some safety goggles. And he's like using a power saw on a piece of lumber. And it's like, Jesus.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. It's like, oh man, does he think like he must, right?
Is
Like,
he
oh
like having
wow,
flashbacks?
the last time I used this, it was pretty violent.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's gotta fuck you up. I mean, this life. And then he's opening up a coffin versus opening up a cooler with beers, which we do see like two instances of that. So he's opening up the cooler of beers, and then we see him again opening up and grabbing a beer to share it with Sam versus opening it up and sharing it with his buddy Sid, a local neighbor. And I get the sense that they work together perhaps as well, maybe.
Yeah, maybe. I think they showed, well, he's like the across the street neighbor.
Mm-hmm.
So
And then we
I don't
see,
know if Sid does construction.
yeah, maybe not. And then we see Ben helping him with the car instead of Sam, which is really touching. And then I think this is my favorite because we see him just locking all the doors at night. And he's like checking outside the window, he's closing the blinds, he's locking the door. And it just seems like a very normal thing for him to do, but also very similar to his sense of like safety and protection. So, but instead of like protecting Sam and protecting them against monsters, we just get the sense he's just, just giving it a once over like you do every night just to ensure, no robbers come in or anything like that.
Mhm.
Um, but he's
There's
also
something in the back of his
drinking.
head. Yeah.
Oh yeah. And we also see him drinking, shooting down his last whiskey of the night.
Mhm.
And then he goes to bed, and we like have a pan from him, you know, getting into this cozy bed with Lisa. And then the camera pans down, and he's got a shotgun, some holy water, and a cross within that water underneath his bed.
Old habits die hard.
Mm-hmm. I mean, just in
Mhm.
case.
Mhm.
But then we get the credits, the title credit card, which is now Broken Glass.
Mhm. It's different.
Um, it's different. I don't love this one because we went from like really cool like angel wings and really cool like flame
Uh-huh. And then
to,
like blood.
yeah, to glass. Um, but I think we don't have enough information yet, as always. But I think it'll be interesting to watch and continue watching season 6 to see if like any themes jump out at us to see like, okay, what does this broken glass represent?
Hmm. I don't know. My first thought is a mirror.
Mm.
Maybe Sam is like Nega Sam.
Nega Sam. Ooh.
I don't know, man.
Yeah. I like that. I like that idea. And hey, at the end of season 5, right? When Lucifer was within him, we saw him like looking at the mirror
Oh, yeah.
and like having that internal conversation.
Yeah. Getting ready for the boss fight.
Yeah. That's pretty cool. Yeah, I like that connection. Um so after the title card, we see Dean at a bar with Sid. Um it's interesting cuz he's really trying to open up and trying to bond with this guy. He's been there a year now, so he probably knows him pretty well.
Mhm.
But it seems like Sid is trying to get him to open up even more than he already has or hasn't. But obviously, Dean doesn't want to reveal too much of his past life. And I think he tells Sid that he was actually in pest control.
Yeah.
That was his big thing.
Mhm.
Uh, did it for years. um, and so afterwards, they take off, and it's not before Dean gets the waitress's number, and he just
Yeah.
like
I love that
doesn't
part.
even,
Because it's like,
yeah.
man, every time.
And Dean's not even trying, like
No, he's just sitting there
he's
looking pretty.
and that just goes to show he's probably doing even better, not even trying. And before he's just always flirting and
Yeah. And
going
that
too
didn't always work
hard,
out, huh?
right? um, but before Dean can get into his truck, he hears a screaming sound, like a girl screaming. So he grabs his gun and makes his way into a nearby building that looks abandoned. It looks like it's under construction. And he goes up the stairs and he genuinely looks scared as he's
Mhm.
investigating. Like he looks very nervous.
Yeah, super on edge.
Uh-huh. Which in the past, like, okay, yeah, he's on edge, like scoping out a building, but he seems more confident himself at those
Right.
times versus now.
Mhm.
I mean, he hasn't hunted in over a year, so he seems a little bit nervous. But the only thing that he finds are some scratch marks and a bloody handprint. So that's obviously a little bit weird.
Yeah, that's still definitely like evidence. That's some weirdness.
Hmm. So, back at home, he checks if anybody has reported for missing persons at the local station. And then Lisa comes in and he lies to her and just says, "Oh, he was just speaking to Sid, setting up a poker game." And before he goes to bed, we see him again checking the doors and the windows, but this time we see him lift the front rug up where there's a devil's trap hiding. So I like that juxtaposition a little bit because like the first time it seemed like, oh, this is just the ritual that you go through every
Yeah,
night,
yeah.
right? Just
Just
checking the
just dad
doors.
locking up.
Hmm. Versus like this is, oh no, he's like double checking that the devil's trap is still there.
Mhm.
I would have liked if we would have gotten a shot of like some salt alongside the windowsill or something like that.
Uh-huh.
Maybe he
Something
set
else
like
too.
salt in the foundation, around. Um,
That'd be fucking sweet.
yeah, that would be cool. Um, but yeah, he just goes to bed right after that, after he finishes his remaining nightly whiskey. So the next day, we see Dean just sitting in a car, and I guess he was just like staking out the neighborhood. They don't really
Mhm.
point
That's
out
the
what
feeling
he's
I got
doing.
too.
Yeah, just trying to see if there's anything odd. And then he spots the same scratch marks on an electric pole and is led into a backyard where there are more scratches. And he opens a shed where a little Yorkie is and is like pointing his gun at it, and it just takes off and runs away when Sid catches him and he's like, were you about to shoot that Yorkie?"
Yeah, are you gonna kill the neighbor's dog?
And he's
Calm down.
like, "Ugh, I thought it was a possum, like pest control, am I right?" you know?
Those
So,
things have rabies. Super dangerous. Huh.
and it's like, oh, I had no idea. Like, he's just this dumb guy. I was totally expecting him to be a demon or like some sort of thing.
Really?
That,
Because I got the feeling that he didn't totally believe Dean. I thought he
oh,
was just
okay.
being nice and he was like, oh, wow, okay.
Well, I definitely got that sense later when Lisa's like, I ran into Sid. You were kind of acting weird.
Poor
But
Sid. He's like, what the fuck is wrong with this guy?
right. And then Dean spots some sulfur on the ground, and that's when he's like, okay, gotta go. And he takes off to his garage.
Yeah. And I think he was just still in the regular truck because he's got the Impala all like covered up in the garage and like
That's
packed away.
true. Yeah. And I guess maybe you get the sense that he's not really taking that baby out. He's got her
Yeah,
locked
he's
up.
not hunting, so neither is she.
Yeah. Well, he does open up her trunk though, to get
Hey.
some guns and weapons and put them into a travel bag. But then he hides it when he hears like Lisa coming, which I thought was really interesting. And she's like, "Oh yeah, I just ran into Sid. He told me you almost shot a Yorkie," and she asks if he's hunting, and he says he thought he was, but he's pretty sure he just got worked up over nothing, and tells her just in case to go to the movies with Ben and get out while he double checks everything. So I like that she listens to him. I like that she
Yeah.
like takes this very seriously and is not mad that he's on edge or
I know. I have to
nervous about
say she
this.
was like one of the shining bits of this episode for me, actually. Like we got more Lisa and she's so awesome. Like she
Yeah.
obviously really loves Dean and totally believes him and like cares and wants to help him. And yeah, she just totally trusts him.
Yeah, she does. I mean, she's not, I don't know, just like I said, she's not mad at all that he's wanting to double check just to make sure that they're okay. I mean,
Yeah,
she
they're safe.
understands the importance of that. And she understands, as we later see, that, he's got a few issues. He's led this crazy life, he saved the world. And she respects that. So I don't
And
know. It
she
just goes to
knows too, like
show.
she just totally believes that all of that happened and yeah,
Yeah.
it's great.
It just goes to show just how awesome Lisa is. Like, we already knew that, but this just confirms it. And I'm glad that season 6, this new set of writers don't backtrack on that and flip her character and make her out to be like a bad thing for Dean.
Right. Yeah, like there's trouble in their relationship or something and she kind of sucks.
Yeah, because I feel like lesser writers would have done that,
Mm.
and they would have like destroyed their relationship and made it, I don't know, made it easier for Dean to just give up this normal life and go back to hunting, I guess.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah, it was a good decision to not go that way.
Yeah. So, we see that she's left and he's alone in his garage again. He checks the hunter's journal, and probably looking up like scratch marks, I guess. I don't know. When he hears like the light bulb above him crackling, and he hears a noise coming from the other side of the garage, and he checks behind the car and there's nothing. And then he turns, and all of a sudden, the yellow-eyed demon is standing there. Um, and he taunts Dean that he's back, but when Dean shoots him, like nothing happens. So it seems like he's not even corporeal. Because it just kind of smokes. He grabs Dean by the throat and says he had to know that they were coming for him sometime. And then it's a little odd the way they do it. I mean, I think it works knowing like what's happening. We know that the yellow-eyed demon later on is just a hallucination.
Mhm.
Um, but all of a sudden it goes from like the yellow-eyed demon has Dean to, okay, actually Sam's standing there in front of him, and he shoots or like stabs Dean in the heart with a shot, kind of very like Pulp Fiction style.
Mhm.
And we see Dean like wake up. So now we get the sense, oh, okay, this was actually a hallucination. He's he didn't actually see that, and he was like asleep or something.
Mhm.
Um, and we get that confirmation in a second. But yeah, I mean, Sam's back, obviously. And Dean wakes up in a dark and dingy house with Sam watching over him. Sam says he expected a hug, but Dean's like, am I dead? Am I in heaven or hell or whatever?
Yeah.
And Sam explains that he was just seeing all of that, and he does all of the tests because, Dean is like, oh, okay, am I seeing you also? And Sam cuts himself, he drinks some salt holy water, and he's like, no, I'm real. And Dean
Also, that
obviously
water was
just
nasty.
yeah, super gross. And Dean obviously can't believe it. Um, and he like gives Sam this huge hug and is
So
obviously
sweet.
super emotional to see him. But Sam just
He
I don't know,
just
he just
kinda,
stands
like,
there.
yeah, and I noticed it. I watched it a second time, and I noticed him more the second time, like, he smiles and kinda, like, nods a little bit, like
Mhm.
he's happy, and this is kind of, like, what he expected, and, um, it's I don't know, I guess some kind of confirmation for him, but he's not overjoyed.
Yeah, no. Um, which, is just we've talked about it a little bit, but I think we'll continue seeing that and seeing this new Sam.
Mhm.
He's a little bit different. So Sam says he's been calling Cass, but there's been no answer. He was in hell, and then all of a sudden he was standing on Earth. And he has no leads on what saved him. And he kind of makes a reference to the fact that, he had been searching for weeks and nothing, or calling Cass for weeks and nothing. And then Dean's like, wait a second, weeks? Like, how long have you been back?
Mhm.
And Sam reveals he's been back for a year. And Dean's obviously extremely upset that he didn't tell him. But Sam explains that Dean just deserved a regular life. So, obviously we saw at the end of season 5, Sam show up um, and looked at him. And so I guess that's just confirmation that, okay, he saw him, he saw that he was living a normal life, he was all good. And then he just decided not to bother him and bog him down with the fact that he was back.
Right. Yeah, I got problems with that.
I I mean I get the thought process of that, you know? I don't know what he expected. I don't know if he expected that Dean, if he would have just told him, "Hey, I'm alive," that Dean would have been like, "Well, fuck Lisa, let's get the fuck out of here."
Yeah.
I I don't track that, you know?
Right. Right. I don't track that. And I also like it breaks down for me when you think about that. And like okay, I get that, he sees that he's living this life with Lisa and may think that he's better off that way, but is Dean also better off not knowing that you're alive?
Yeah.
Really? Really?
I mean, especially since like Sam has dealt with this, he understands,
Oh,
you
when
know,
Dean was gone. Right. He was a wreck.
right, and in Mystery Spot. And, it was a year, right? It was exactly a
Yes.
year without Dean, and Sam had gone haywire,
Yeah, he
which,
went total like Born Identity.
right. Which I guess that makes sense, that he at least checked up on him and said, okay, you know what? He's fine. He's living this life. He's doing what I asked him to.
Right. But he clearly didn't think
Um,
about it from Dean's perspective,
no,
which
no,
is
he
weird
has.
and doesn't make sense for him.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know, it just felt so cold. It just ended up feeling like, okay, I think you just thought about this logically, like what you thought very coldly and logically would be good for Dean, and then just left it at that. Like there's
Yeah.
something not, like he's not feeling anything deeper than the surface level. I think that's what this Sam seems like, and that's why it's so weird for me because he's always been so deep feeling, um, and caring, uh, and sensitive. And now it's like, I don't know, it's sort of like exhibiting the symptoms of someone who's like narcissistic, like they're not empathetic, and don't think about anything beyond, yeah, that like surface level. It's
Yeah.
weird.
Yeah. I mean, and I think it's very intentional. Um and so I would love to hear your theories about that. What's going on with Sam here? Um
Yeah, I mean, I think I kind of touched on it already. I think that it has to do with resetting the universe, resetting the
mhm.
world.
Oh, right. Well, and speaking of that, like Sam just kind of mentions, "Hey, like I don't know who did this and who brought me back." Um and we get no real indication or clue as to how this happened in this
Right.
episode at all. Although interestingly, we see that he's not the only one who was brought back, right? So
Dun dun dun.
yeah. So at that point, Sam says that he's actually been hunting with a group, and Dean's kind of like, "What? Like, that's weird. Who are these people, these strangers?" He says, and Sam's like, "Actually, they're more like family." Wink, wink. And then he leads Dean into the other room to be introduced to Gwen Campbell, Christian Campbell, and Mark Campbell. And Dean's like, "Wait, Campbell? Like, I know that name, like mom." And they're like, "Yep. So these are our third cousins on their mom's side." Um, and just to touch on these actors, so Gwen Campbell is played by Jessica Heafy. I looked at her IMDb, and she doesn't have a lot there. She's, been in lots of TV shows, but just as one-off characters. Um, Christian Campbell is played by Corin Nemec, and
What's his first
he
name? Corn?
Corin.
Oh. That's a weird name. I feel like you could
It
very
is.
easily just say that quickly and it's like, your name is Corn.
Well, okay, wait, and this is odd because it says Corin's name comes from his nickname, Corky, given to him as a child by his grandmother. So maybe he wasn't born into that name?
What's his real name?
I don't I don't know. Oh, okay, I got it. Joseph Charles Nemec, the fourth.
And then we went to Corky and then
And then
Corin.
Corin. His agent was like, "You know what? Joseph Charles is not working. Go with Corin."
That's dumb. Why not just like
It's
Joey
odd.
or I don't know, something that doesn't sound like corn?
Yeah. It's an interesting name for sure.
I'm really hating on it.
Um
Sorry, dude.
no, it's fine. Um yeah, he didn't he's been in a lot also. He's been in some Star Trek, um
Hey.
just a bit. Also a show called Starving,
Okay.
uh as Corin. Wait, hold on. What? What's going on
No.
here? Is this like a reality TV show or something?
That's funny.
Okay, so David Faustino. Okay, I'm reading the IMDb description of this show, starving. And so it's also like star, like a, and then a hyphen, and then ving.
So okay, okay.
Okay, yes, this is definitely a reality TV show. So David Faustino plays himself as a struggling actor in this very entertaining web series. Or it's not a, it's like it's not a reality TV show, but like
Oh, what's that called?
a
Um,
mock,
Satire?
a, a satire. Yeah, I guess. Great cameos and several appearances by former Married with Children cast members.
Whoa,
What?
weird.
I know. Um,
I never watched that show.
w- wow,
Yeah.
that's bad, bad,
I
bad, bad,
guess. I
bad.
don't know. I guess it just didn't appeal to me. Like, it was definitely on TV when I was old enough to have control of the remote and, like, would flip around, but it just never, appealed to me.
I mean, I don't like. I haven't seen every single episode or anything like that, but if it was on, I would definitely leave it on.
Hmm.
You know?
Yeah. I just didn't give it a chance.
Yeah, it's pretty funny. Oh, and he was on Stargate too.
Okay.
So
Alright.
whatever all those words mean.
So, those things.
Those things. So yeah, I don't recall him from anything in particular. The only guy that I actually recognized was Mark Campbell, who's played by David Patecow, I'm gonna say.
Sure.
Um, I recognize him from Final Destination 2. So he plays like the asshole jock who gets killed in his kitchen, and he drops his brand new gold watch into the sink, and then he reaches
Oh, he
into the
does
sink
a dead in the water
like
thing?
he does a dead in the water thing like a dumbass, reaches into the sink to get his watch, gets it stuck, and then oh, and then he's like cooking at the same time, so then like he accidentally knocks something over and can't reach it, and then I don't know, the whole thing, he like blows up or something, I don't know.
That's awesome. Look, everybody knows you don't stick your hand in the goddamn sink.
Yeah, you don't do it. I
Just don't
know
do
the one
it.
time I like dropped something, oh, like spoon or something into the
Mhm.
sink.
Mhm.
I was like, I told my husband to get it. I was like, I'm not doing this
Yeah,
shit.
it's gone. Yeah, I'm calling a plumber, a professional,
Right.
somebody to come fish it out.
um so yeah, that's who we've got as the Campbells. Not too memorable though, I would say.
No, I would agree. I
And then we've
they
met,
don't do anything
oh,
for me.
yeah, I don't really, I don't know. I don't really care too much for them. But then surprise surprise there's somebody else because they, Sam is like introducing them, and he's like, "Oh yeah, they grew up in the hunter life." And Dean's like, "What? Like I didn't even know about any of them. Like any of these third cousins existed." And a man appears to say it's because they didn't, like, the Campbells didn't know about Sam and Dean either. Um and that man is Samuel, their grandfather.
Oh shit.
And yeah, we get this like flashback to Samuel, like, well, dying, right? He died back in the day, back in the 70s, when he like tried to save all of them. And he had been taken over by the yellow-eyed demon at that time, and that was back like in season 4 that we had seen him. And apparently he had been brought back, and he references down, so I guess he was like in heaven, quote unquote, but back to earth.
Yeah. Good catch. I guess that's what he meant.
Yeah. And he's played again by Mitch Pileggi, who I've seen in like Sons of Anarchy, and I think he was in the most recent X Files and maybe the old X Files also. He's been around as a character actor.
Mhm.
But that's odd, right? I mean, again, we don't get a sense of like who brought back Sam and who pulled Grandpa Samuel back on Earth either,
Right.
but it's a little random.
Yeah, it's a little random, and I couldn't help but be suspicious, like right from the beginning, um, about why or like what Grandpa's doing, or even what Sam is doing. I got the sense from the very beginning, like they were all doing some shady shit, and Dean was gonna uncover that at some point and be like, "What the fuck, everybody?" Um,
Right.
So yeah, we didn't really get any information like that. So I was just very suspicious.
Yeah, and I mean they go a little heavy-handed on that later on. But sure, it is they're not very trustworthy. They're not a trustworthy lot.
And they're not acting like it either.
No. And I asked myself at the end of the episode, but really I want to ask myself at this point, like if I didn't know anything that happened later on, like
Mhm.
what are we even supposed to think of them, of the
Right.
Campbells? At this point, are we supposed to like them? Are we supposed to say, "Oh, family, that's awesome"?
I don't
But
know. That I feel like you should be, like maybe that's what the viewer is supposed to think, but they're not really portrayed that way. Like it's not like a really happy cool reunion. Like everybody's acting kind of like dicks. So that I don't really know what they wanted the viewer to think other than I don't really trust you. And like, why are
right.
you so standoffish? And like Samuel said some things that were comforting and, like sounded like they were the right words to say. Like, Dean saw Samuel and they hugged and he's just like staring at him. And Samuel's like, that's okay. You've seen a lot of, what did he say? Like, uh,
Um
doornails. I think he says you've seen a lot of
oh,
doornails today, take it easy.
right, right.
Just take it in. So he's like being really nice to Dean and, trying to help him uh get used to the idea.
Mhm.
But I don't know. It just seemed off.
Yeah, I mean there's just not a lot of warmth there. I mean, I
Right.
think if we
Like
were if we were uh-huh.
I'm sorry. I was just thinking we just watched Hot Fuzz recently.
Uh-huh.
And I had seen it before, but not since it came out. So it's been quite a while now. And I had forgotten those two guys who are the investigators, like they're the actual like the police investigators on the crew, and they're such assholes. Like they both have the same attitude, and every time Simon Pegg's character is like trying to talk to them about like going to investigate something, they're like, "Oh, what do you think happened?" Blah, 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 like murders don't happen here. Accidents happen all the time. Why don't you go do your job? Like, and they make fun of him all the time, and they're just like complete a-holes. And
Right.
that's how I felt about the Campbells. I was like, these guys, especially like not so much Gwen because she was kind of nice and sarcastic or whatever, but the two guys, I just got that feeling from them where they were like, you're a hunter, like I think
I
one of them
I
even said like, leave it to the professionals. You've been out of the game for a while. I was like, you sound
yeah,
like that twat from that movie.
exactly. No, I mean, I think I hated Gwen the most, honestly. I when she like held up that like in style magazine and was like, "Oh, does your wife read this or does the
Oh
lady of the
yeah.
house read this or something like that?" And I was like, "What? Like, why are you making fun of that? Like, InStyle is a really great magazine. I used to subscribe to it, and I
Yeah,
used
calm
to,
down.
yeah, but no, she just seemed. I don't know. I remember seeing this the first time and thinking, "Oh wow, a female hunter!" Like I got really excited about that, and then just seeing her attitude was just kind of like, well, she's not very fun. She's not very exciting to me. But I think that's the thing, right? Like, typically we might be introduced to a group like this and go, oh, look at this ragtag team, and kind of have these like moments where we get a sense of each of their personalities. And it's just, there's not really much there. It's just they think they're better than everybody else. They seem to have hunted a lot, and be really, strong about that and very serious about it, take it very seriously.
Right.
And that's it.
And
There's
they're kind
not
of
much
snotty
more to
about it.
them.
Yeah.
Yeah, very snotty. So it's, yeah, it was very odd for sure.
Didn't love it.
Yeah. Well, and then Dean, asks, okay, is there anybody else that I should know has been pulled down from heaven or up from hell? And they're like, Sam's like, no, I mean, this is all that we know. And they argue again. Sam was adamant about leaving Dean out until then. Dean was apparently poisoned, and that's why he was seeing the hallucinations, obviously by a djinn. And Dean says that he thought there were cave dwellers, and um, he kind of, this is where they kind of change the idea of these monsters, and kind of, God, there's a word for it. Re Recon it? No, they just repurpose, I guess, the supernatural creature to something different.
Mm-hmm.
But apparently they had gotten Sam before, but Samuel has a cure for the poison, which we hadn't seen before. I guess because it's news to them. And they figure that the Jinn may have then gone after Dean since he had staked one of them before. So the
I feel
whole
like it's
Jinn
kind of thin.
thing, it doesn't really work for me. I mean, already with the whole like supernatural creature features and how they look and all of that, but also the fact that they now have some sort of personal vendetta against Sam and Dean 4 years, 5 years later.
Right. For coming after them or one of their kind. I don't know.
Yeah,
It's yeah. It's a little thin for me.
yeah, it's not too good. Um, So Dean says it's probably after Lisa and Ben then. And Samuel says, don't worry, they sent someone over there to watch them, but the group rushed over only to find that person dead in the car outside. Now,
Mhm.
who is that person?
I don't know. Not a Campbell, I guess.
Right, because they're not like, oh yeah, third cousin Bob is actually staking out Ben and Lisa.
Right. Right. They were just like, "Oh yeah, we sent somebody over and he's just some dude. No name."
Yeah, right. I guess he was maybe just like an intern or something.
Yeah, for sure.
Uh
That's funny.
So Dean is searching the house for Ben and Lisa. They're not back yet, and he gets on the phone to dial Lisa. And this is really sweet. He's like looking at pictures of them on like in the kitchen, and
Mhm.
just with a lot of worry in his eyes. And oh my god, it's just so clear that he loves them so much, and it's so
Yeah.
sweet. And then Lisa and Ben appear behind him. They've just gotten back home from the movies, and he tells them to pack their bags. So that was also a little bit confusing to me, just because it wasn't very clear to me when Dean was taken by the Jinn.
Like how much
And I
time has passed and stuff.
Right, exactly, yeah,
Yeah. 'Cause it does seem like it's been hours later. So, I mean, maybe she just I don't know. He was kinda like, just go to the mall, go to the Cheesecake Factory. So I don't know, maybe they spent like a long day, just like out and then at the movies.
right,
But yeah, it was a little strange. It didn't really quite make sense because he could have been out for a really long time. I don't know.
yeah. Well,
Also, side note, I really love that they got the same kid to play Ben because I think there
oh
had been like an interim episode where he went to go see Lisa and you only see this kid from the back and it's not the
yeah.
same kid.
That's true. We never I think we had even postulated like, oh, maybe they couldn't get the Nicholas Elia is his name back for that little
Uh-huh.
moment.
But he's back for
Um
this, which is really cool because you like see him like, face to face with Dean and like having that relationship and stuff. And I did like that.
yeah. Yeah, I think it would have been nice to have a little bit more of that because I think they focused more on Dean and Lisa and their relationship, but not Dean as a father figure. And obviously, we hear from Lisa that he is a great father figure, but it would have been nice to see that as well.
Yeah, totally. Especially because like we know that Dean thought that Ben was his for a while and he kind of liked the idea.
Yeah.
He was kind of like weirdly excited about being Ben's dad because he thought Ben was such a cool kid and they got along so well and like it would have been great to see them like really bonded.
Yeah, for sure. Um, so Dean shows up at Bobby's house with Lisa and
Hip
Ben,
hip house.
his house. Um and they've apparently never been introduced. So I guess I get the sense that Dean hasn't seen Bobby in quite a long time.
Yeah, I guess maybe not. It seemed like a long time, but I don't know when they last saw each other. Was it this whole
Yeah.
year?
I, I don't know. I mean, it's a little weird. Have they been calling? Have they been having phone chats or anything like that? I don't know.
Right?
I get maybe like Dean was just like, nope, I'm not even gonna go back to like even interact with the hunter life, basically.
Yeah, I don't know.
So Sam walks in also, and Dean's kind of expecting this, like, oh, Sam, you're back. But Bobby just kind of nods to him, and it's apparent that Bobby knew he was alive. Um, and so the next scene we see, Dean kind of getting it out of Bobby. He's like, yes, I knew he was alive the entire time. Um, but he didn't tell Dean because Dean got out of the hunter life. And Dean's like, yeah, but I drank too much. I had nightmares. He apparently read hundreds of books trying to think of how to bust Sam out. And, of course, Sam is like, you promised you wouldn't do that. And Dean's like, well, what the hell? Like, what'd you think I was going to do? Just let you rot there?
Yeah, of course I broke my promise. What did you think I was
Right.
gonna do?
And Bobby says it was as close to happiness as he'd ever seen a hunter get. Oh.
Yeah. Yeah, and I don't know, like, that's part of why I didn't like this whole thing too, is like, did Sam really think that Dean was gonna be happier not knowing that he was alive? Because Dean was a wreck, you know? And then Sam at the beginning of this episode, it definitely was set up to seem like, "No, I thought you were better off that way. You had the life, like, that's what you deserved, and I wanted you to have that." And then later at the very end of the episode, he's like or toward the end, he's like, "I basically shoved you at them."
Hmm.
And then he's like, "So now I'm not so sure." And it's just really kind of, like, callous. And also,
Yeah.
like, okay, so maybe you did know that this was gonna fuck Dean up because yeah, of course, like, that's a great life. Like he loves Ben and Lisa and has, had a taste of just a normal life. But he's still fucked in the head. Like, I can't imagine throughout that year, like all of the like long talks and like long nights and difficult talks that he and Lisa have had to go through to try and help him because
Hmm.
he showed up broken, and she just let him in, and they've had to help like rehabilitate this man basically.
Yeah, I think I agree with that. It's I don't know, it's just surprising to me. how Sam reacts later on.
Right. Like, did he really not think that any of that was going to happen?
Well, and also, I mean, it's very clear that what Dean's struggling with is like PTSD from his hunter life. And we've kind
Right.
of seen that already with previous hunters. I think back in like season 2 with the crossroads, that dude that had like the crossroads roads dirt that they
Yeah,
needed to
yeah,
get that
yeah.
from, or maybe that was season 3 because of hellhound reasons. But I mean, we've seen how the hunter life can affect people, even after they're quote unquote out of it. And so I do like that they're showing the consequences of that life, even though Dean has escaped, quote unquote gotten out. He obviously is still having these repercussions.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah, it messed him
but
up.
I don't know. Yeah. No, it did mess him up, but yeah, Sam's turn later on is really interesting. I don't
I don't
know.
really get it.
I I guess I just don't get where it comes from.
Yeah.
Be- yeah. Yeah, we'll get there in a sec. But Dean tells Lisa that Bobby is going to look after them, and Dean and Sam are going to go head out. And he apologizes since to Lisa. He's now sitting on the stairs with her. He says that the Jinn came after them because it's looking for Dean, because of what he did. And Lisa asks him how long he's going to be, and he can't answer that because it seems as if he's now saying goodbye, like to their life, essentially.
Mhm. Although I did note, I don't know if you were going to say this, but she was like, "So are you saying goodbye?" And he doesn't say goodbye.
Mm-mm. That's true.
So I thought that was kind of sweet
He
too. He's like,
pauses.
"No, yeah, right." And then he says something else, like, "This is what I'm saying."
Right. I think it's just him. Maybe he's still kind of turning it over. Maybe he's already having that doubt like,
Yeah.
"Oh, this is obviously what I was afraid of. It's put her and Ben in danger, and he's already thinking through that and the consequences.
Yeah.
But he does, however, apologize for everything he says. And he says that he was a wreck and not really that great. But Lisa reminds him, like, hey, you saved the world, and then showed up on my doorstep. I knew you were going to have a little bit of issues, but it doesn't compare. Like, those issues don't compare at all to how great of a dad you've been to Ben, basically.
So great.
I love Lisa.
Me too. And then she's like, "You're such an idiot, like you think that this was a bad thing, but it was the best year of my life." Oh my god. She loves him so much.
Yeah, she really does. You can
I
tell.
mean, I get it, girl, like he was always the one that she like had a thing for. It was so funny, like thinking back to the episodes with her, and she was like her friends were like, "Oh, you're Dean?"
Yeah, like
Like
she's
she's talked
obviously been
about
talking about
him,
him.
yes, for years, and he's been gone for years, and she's still like, "Oh, Dean." So he's like finally back and been like so great with Ben, and she's just like, "Nope, this is what I want. It's fine."
Yeah,
Even though he needs
perfect
help.
life.
Yeah.
That's so sweet. And obviously he's been dreaming about it too, as we've seen in like the dream episode and stuff. So
Yeah.
it's really sweet. So Dean goes into the other room where the Campbells and Sam are setting up, and he asks what's the plan. And they don't really have one. They're just like, yeah, we'll find them. We're cleaning our guns like always, and just whatever, moving stuff from bag to bag. They're not really doing anything. And we get a son of a bitch here, and I'll insert it later. Um, and Dean's like, okay, actually, here's the plan. They're after me and Sam, so let's use us as bait to draw them out. And so they're on board with that. Even though it takes a little bit of coaxing, just like a tiny bit, because they seem to think that Sam and Dean, well, Dean specifically, is not capable, because he's been out of like the hunter life for a year, which is really stupid. And so, but they do agree, and they set up camp at the house, at Dean and Lisa's house. And that's the moment where we see Glenn making fun of Incel magazine. And then Sam makes fun of Dean's golf clubs. And Dean's like, hey, it's a sport, okay? Which I think I read on Supernatural Wiki that like it was a reference to the fact that Jensen really likes to play golf. And
That's
I
funny.
guess, oh, like it has a picture of Jensen at the Paley Celebrity Golf Classic in 2009. So
Nice.
yeah. Um, so this is where we get that discussion between Sam and Dean in the kitchen. And it's a nice moment just to, I'm sorry, Samuel and Dean in the kitchen, and they're just kind of talking stuff out. Dean explains how he's been able to deal with things. Um or he's I'm sorry, he's kind of upset about the fact that like they didn't go to him, but Samuel explains that the group has just been dealing with things for the past couple of months just as they come up, but it just seems like there's something lurking in the background because the Jinn this whole Jinn happened. He mentions like exsanguinated children. Weird things have been popping up here and there. So it might point to something worse. Um, but he's not really able to give any more detail than that. It's a little bit vague.
Hmm.
There's no theories,
Yeah.
you know.
I'm using that to kind of also support my theory of like things are back, but mixed up a little bit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because he says like, okay, I have the direct quote: nocturnals attacking in broad daylight, werewolves out on the half moon, creatures that we've never even seen before.
Right.
Yeah,
What?
and he can't really, give any more description to that. But very interesting. Like what are these creatures? What's going on here? Um oh, and he says something really interesting. He says, "You don't know what you're part of, Dean. You know, you had ancestors hacking the heads off vamps on the Mayflower. What
That's
I'm
pretty
saying
sweet.
is that we're your blood." Yeah, that's really cool. I
Pretty
want to
fucking
see
sweet.
that episode.
Hell yeah. Hell to the yeah. Can we get a flashback? Winchester family history on
Well,
the
I guess it would be the
Mayflower.
Campbell history, yeah,
True,
on the
yeah.
Mayflower.
Campbell family history.
um, and he says, just it's maybe not the best time for golf, but it's like, but when's the best time for golf? Like Dean's
Also,
out,
don't be a dick because you know that the only reason Dean didn't know that y'all were still hunting and there was anything to do is because Sam didn't let him in.
right? Yeah, it's not like he knew that all of this was happening and he just ignored it,
Exactly. Rude.
right? Yeah, I guess it just points to like, I don't know. When they save the world, when they stop the apocalypse, Sam and Dean didn't, or Dean didn't necessarily think, oh, that's it, right? I mean, it's not like they could have guessed, oh, there's no more vampires, there's no more jinns, there's none of this anymore. There's still supernatural creatures out there. It's just we stopped the Christian apocalypse. That's all that happened.
Mhm. Mhm.
But Dean's kind of just operating like, well, there are other hunters out there that can handle this,
Right.
which I mean, yeah, I guess. I mean, that's a tough one. It's not I don't know. I don't know what to think about that. It's not on Dean to be the savior of the world and fight as many he's done his
Yeah, he
duty.
kind of already was the savior of the world.
Right. I guess. I don't know. I don't know. That's a tough one. That's probably part of why he's been having nightmares maybe, or had has had anxiety because there's still things
Mm.
out there and he's not out hunting them.
Yeah, maybe some guilt or uncertainty there.
Mhm.
Mhm.
So okay, this next scene is really weird.
Cool.
I don't know what to make of it. Dean goes outside to check on Mark, who's staking out the neighborhood in the van. And he's like looking through not binoculars, but I guess it's called a monocular,
Mm.
a little telescope thingy. And okay, I don't know, Christine. I guess this is supposed to be funny where he like tells Mark, like, you don't say much, do you? And Mark's like, enough. Like really cool, I guess.
Yeah, real
I don't know.
douchey.
Right. Is it supposed to be making fun of how Dean used to be, maybe?
I don't know. I didn't see any of Dean in this. I just felt like he was, I don't know, trying to be moody and not
Yeah,
nice or something.
right. Well, okay, so he hands Dean the little telescope thing, but before Dean can even look, he says there are three jinn off in the trees. And Dean stops. He doesn't look, and he just looks. He hands back the scope, and then he just has like this really weird, worried look on his face.
Mhm.
Uh, and late the next scene we see, okay, it's because he's like realized, oh, the Jinn are just kind of chilling. They're not going to attack because the Campbells are there. They need to take off and leave Sam and Dean on their own. But it was just weird. Like, why did he react that way?
Yeah,
Why didn't he look into the scope himself just to identify how the Jinn look, right?
right.
Because they
Also,
look
like,
like normal people.
what do you mean off in the trees? Like, I'm picturing them like perched up in the tree branches, like birds, like trying to camouflage themselves, but that's probably not like. It
Yeah, that's a little weird. It was just such a weird reaction.
was a weird scene. Totally. Yeah.
Yeah. So, um, the family does agree. Okay, they'll leave him alone, and they just need to call immediately when backup is needed. So they agree. And now they're alone at night in the house. Sam asks Dean if he's all right, and Dean's just like still in disbelief about everything.
Well,
Like,
what a
who
dumb
brought them
question.
back?
Why would he possibly be all right?
Right. Yeah.
Come on,
I
dude.
guess he's just like checking in on him to see how he's doing with all of the information.
I guess he's just a narcissist.
And Dean, asks some good questions. Who brought them back? For what? Um, Dean asks if Sam remembers the cage, and Sam says no. And Dean, in again a reversal of roles, is like, if anybody can relate, it'll be me.
I
So
thought
he
he
can
said that
like,
he did remember.
oh, does he say? I guess he's like first a little standoffish about the question.
Yeah,
Maybe
yeah,
that's
yeah.
that's what I got from it.
Because when I watched it
Um,
yesterday, I think he was like, I think Dean was like, do you
oh,
remember
you're
it?
right.
And he was like, what? And he was like, the
Yeah,
cage. And he was like, yeah. Okay, well, you want to talk about it? No.
he's like, yeah. That's I think that's what I wrote down. That no about like, do you want to talk about it?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Fine,
um,
whatever.
and Sam's like, I don't want to talk about it. I'm back. I get to breathe fresh air, have a beer, hunt with my family, see you again. So why exactly would I want to think about hell? And
Ooh,
then,
I have a thought.
mm, hmm
So since Sam does remember, And we know that time is all fucked up down there. Was Sam in hell for like years,
Hmm.
even though he was brought back pretty quickly?
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. That might be so. We know that he wasn't down there for as long as Dean was down in hell, because Dean was down there for like 3 months. And
Mhm.
we just get the sense that this is like, I don't know. We don't really know. Maybe it's been a few days. Maybe it was a few days after or something. I
Yeah, can
mean,
somebody do some calculation? Well, even if it's like right afterward, like, okay, so 3 months equated to 40 years. So even if Sam was down there for like, because it was pretty immediate,
yeah.
that he went into the pit and then suddenly, like, Bobby came back, Cass came back, everything changed. That was maybe like, mm, 10 minutes, let's say. Uh, like what does that equate to, I wonder? Even if it's just like a year or 6 months.
Yeah. If 3 months. Oh, God. I can't do the math, guys. I don't do math.
I'm going to attempt. I don't do math either, but let's see if I can do anything.
3 months equates 40 years, which means that 40 divided by 3 would be 1 month, right? Let's see how much is that.
No, it was like 13.3. So then I was going to take like 10 minutes times that. So it's just like 2 hours. I feel so dumb. Somebody's going to be like, "You're so fucking dumb." I'm like, "Yeah, that's like 2 hours." I don't know. Y'all help me out cuz it
Maybe,
was like 130ish minutes. Unless we're not talking minutes and we're talking hours.
I don't know.
Help me.
I don't know. There's definitely a way to figure this out, but I have no idea.
Somebody make a formula. Help us figure out how long Sam was in hell years.
Yeah, because we're not going to be able to figure out on this
that
episode.
was my attempt. Maybe I hit on something by accident in there.
And it didn't say in Supernatural Wiki, so
Okay.
I don't know.
Well, that
Maybe
was
we'll
just a
get it in
thought I
another
had.
episode too.
Like maybe that's why part of why he's all weird now too is cuz he, you know, had a bad time for longer than he was actually gone here.
Yeah, it's possible. Sure. Um okay, so right before Dean's about to like say something else, he spots the neighbors across the street be killed by Jin, and he runs off with some of the cure in those little shots, the needles, and Sam tries to stop him and say it's too late for them, which it's not,
Yeah,
right?
rude.
Because Dean also, is ends up being saved, and he ends up in the same spot.
Mhm.
But Sam instead stays back at the house and is attacked by a Jinn there, where we do see like, okay, it looks like a normal human being. It's this just normal man. But then in order to show us that it's in fact a Jinn, he starts sprouting these tattoos all like down his arm and then like later on up his neck.
Mhm.
So that, I don't know. That's kind of, they looked much cooler in season 2. Let's just agree to that.
Yeah, actually, they did.
Um, at the neighbor's house, Dean is grabbed by two other Jinn and given a double dose, apparently, because his Jinn is like, obviously got away from us once. Um, and Sam manages to take down the one Jinn that he had encountered, um, but not before like Dean and the other house is poisoned. So he's poisoned now. He's incapacitated. We see his eyes like go blank, and he awakens to hallucinations, but also sees Lisa and Ben walking back to the house. And then Yellow Eyes is there teasing him and disappears from like right in front of him and appears like within Dean and Lisa's house, to kind of like show, oh, he's going to get them next. And then we see him go into like even more of a dream state where he wakes up in Ben's room. Lisa is like pinned to the ceiling by Yellow Eyes, and then he grabs Ben and like feeds him his blood. And then Lisa starts bleeding from her stomach, and she's like yelling at Dean, saying it's all his fault. And then the yellow eyed demon is saying, that Dean knows that there's something big coming. You know, and basically like that he did this to himself, and saying the same thing as Lisa. It's all his fault. And then Lisa bursts into fire.
So I have some thoughts here, actually, if I can
Mhm.
interrupt.
Yeah.
Um, so when Dean and Sam see that the neighbors are being attacked by the djinn, and Sam's like, no, don't go. It's too late for them. That doesn't really make sense to me because as a hunter and you know where the thing is, wouldn't you just go run over there anyway? Like, why does Sam stay in the house? Ben and Lisa aren't there. There's nothing to protect.
Right. I don't know. I wondered if like they had some sort of Home Alone
Like, trap
setup
or something?
going. Yeah, but we don't see that, right?
No, he doesn't do anything. He just gets attacked and they fight.
Right. Yeah, it doesn't track, I think, as to
It
like
just doesn't really make
why.
sense. Like, I feel like in the past, if Sam and Dean had seen that, they would have both been like, oh shit, and run over there.
Right. Right. Um I well and Sam does talk a little bit later about it, right? He's like, I wouldn't have thought to run over there.
Which, what? Right? I don't know. That's weird to me.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, it's definitely weird for sure.
Okay. So there's that. Also, I didn't think about this that much when she said it. It didn't really click, but now that we're talking about it, I'm able to like think about it a little more. So when Dean is attacked by the djinn and she says something like this is for our father or something.
Yeah.
So
That's for her
are
father.
you talking about like a djinn father or like Lucifer?
No, I think it was like the Jin that they defeated in season 2 was their dad.
That's so fucking dumb.
I know. I know. I don't like it at
I
all.
don't
It's
like that.
I
That's
Cuz I
dumb.
think it's
I think
doing
the
the
Lucifer
whole
thing
like
makes more sense.
family thing.
Why aren't there people coming? I mean, demons coming back to like get Dean for the Lucifer thing because that's
That would
obvious.
have been that would have been great. I think I would have much preferred that.
Okay, I just wanted to see who we were talking about here. That's really silly.
Yeah. It doesn't again, I think it was like going for that whole um this is a family business thing.
Right.
But it doesn't I don't like it. I think the Jin that we saw in season 2 was working on its own. It was, I
Right.
think,
Alone
supposed to
Jin.
be, yeah. I think it was supposed to function as its own thing.
Mm-hmm.
Um
And they could have tied the family thing in some way different, and I think, and had it been more effective.
yeah, I agree.
Okay, thanks. Just had to get that out.
Well, so we see Sam cornered by the Jin, and then Samuel appears, kills one, and he tells Sam to go save Dean, and he'll take care of the other. And when Sam leaves, Samuel is about to fight the other Jin, But then the cousins, the Campbells, bag that demon and tie it up. And then Samuel says to take the gin to the van before the boys get back.
Yeah, so here's that shady shit that I was suspicious of, I guess.
So
Um,
this is like just a confirmation.
uh-huh, that something weird is happening here.
hmm
But I don't know what they could be doing with this gin. So
I don't
that's
know.
weird.
I forgot. So
Oh, good.
I'm
Okay.
just I'm in the dark as much as you. I mean, it is interesting that like there's this antidote that the Campbells that Samuel had created, right? Um,
Yeah, so is it like one of those things where they're making it, like snake uh antidotes are like partially made from their venom or something? Like you're
yeah,
using
that's
the poison that they have to make the antidote, and so they get it from the gin to manufacture or something.
right. So is that how they made it? Maybe, is are they grabbing this gin in order to make more of this antidote?
Yeah, I think that's a really solid guess.
Yeah, I don't know. But it's very why would he be like take them to the van before they get back and then they take off apparently. They don't even say goodbye. So it's still very shady. Even
Right.
if that was the case, why would they hide that? It's very
Mhm.
odd. So, in the aftermath, Dean's fine now and they're just chatting. Again, they mention like, because Dean's like, "Hey, what happened to them?" And Sam's like, "I don't know. They just left.
Okay.
Like they just took off." And Sam asks if Dean is coming with, and Dean says no. And so this is the place where Sam kind of changes his tune. He says that he really meant that Dean could have a normal life back then. But now he doesn't think that. He thinks that he's actually endangering Lisa and Ben
Yeah.
by staying, which is
Yeah.
really harsh.
Yeah, the way he says it too is like really like accusatory and like also like of course Dean has thought about this before. Why do you think that he has all of the doors locked and all that shit set up? Like of course I'm sure that that's been on his mind and his it's weighed heavy on him. But Sam's like, "You realize that you staying means that you're endangering them." It's like, "Fuck you." Yeah, of course. I don't know.
Right.
It's like he's
Yeah.
so
And
proud of
then,
himself because he feels like he's thought of this for the first time.
right, which obviously he hasn't. And Dean, has a good point that, like, okay, if he made them vulnerable at that point, he'll make them even more vulnerable if he leaves them.
Yeah.
So really, he needs to stay to protect them.
Yeah, that is a
And
good
Sam's
point.
like, well, I guess I just wish you were coming along. And Dean asks why. And he's like, plenty of good hunters. I'm rusty. I did something seriously stupid by going over to the neighbors to help them. And Sam's like, well, that's exactly why I want you. You just went, you didn't hesitate because you care, and that's who you are. Me, I wouldn't even think to try. And Dean's like, what? Like, yes, you would. And Sam's like, no, I'm telling you, it's just better with you around. That's all.
See, I think that that's Dean picking up on the fact that this isn't normal Sam either.
Yeah. Or I don't know if he's fully picked up on that yet.
Right, right. That he like actually realizes that. But
Mhm.
but him being confused by that for sure is like, yeah, I think you're right. Like he's not conscious of it,
Mhm.
but he's already questioning that because he's like, yeah, you would, because that's you.
Right. Yeah, I mean that was a big part of some monologue at the end of season 5 that I can't remember what, but it was like Sam is the kid who would run into a house that was on fire, to
Yeah, that was
save.
like Bobby saying, like, we were always like down on him, but that whole time he was running into burning buildings.
Right.
Yeah,
So, yeah. So this is clearly not the Sam that we know and love. And Dean hasn't yet gotten there. At least he hasn't verbalized it, but right, like you said, like this is kind of him going, wait a second, like
right.
you would do this for sure. And but Dean, he holds out the keys to the Impala and he says that she should be hunting, so take her. And Sam, again, without any sort of emotion, says, thanks, but I already got my car set up how I like it.
I kind of get that though. I mean, and I want the Impala to stay with Dean. I don't know. So maybe I'm just kind of partial.
No, I agree with that. But do you think that Sam was saying that with Dean's thoughts in mind? Or do you think he was really saying, nah, I don't need your car. I got my own.
The latter. Yeah, I think he feels like he doesn't need it.
Yeah. Which
Mhm.
again, I think is another pointer to like you know, this is a different Sam, or this is a Sam that is less emotional. Because if we remember back at the beginning of season 5, when Dean was like, I don't think that we can hunt together. Dean offered Sam the Impala, and Sam said, you know, he declined at that point, but he did it in a way that was like, I couldn't. Like you need to keep her, you know?
Mhm.
And so it's just another instance where it's like replaying that moment, but this time around it's not. I couldn't do that to you. It's more just like, no, I don't have any sort of emotional attachment to it, almost. Even though like it was such a big part of the end of season 5 again, right, where they have Sam and Dean carved into, or their initials carved into the car. And it was a big part of why Sam remembered himself when Lucifer had taken over his body at the very end. Like he saw the glint,
Mhm.
where the sun caught his eye, and then he saw like the little ashtray or whatever, the side door where they used to keep their little army men. Um, and so that's all gone though.
Right.
That's not there.
Right. I don't like it.
Well, and interestingly, Dean, he walks him out, and they say goodbye, and Sam drives off, and we do see a glimpse before the black screen appears of Sam driving. I asked my husband, and he said it was a black Challenger, because I was like, "What car is this?
Yeah, he
Can
got a
you let me
stupid
know?"
Challenger. That car sucked, by the way. Such a dud.
Well, I was curious to know like his thoughts of like, what does this mean? I don't know these cars. And he said, well, it's a new school muscle car,
Yep.
which makes sense for Sam because he's all about technology. But I was like, okay, well, this is representative, I think, of Sam moving on without Dean. He's got this fancy new car.
Totally.
It's totally different from the Impala, right? That's a muscle car, but it's old school. It's you know, completely different.
Yeah, it's a classic muscle car. And the Challenger, like that's a 2010 Challenger, and that was when they were trying to do a lot of new stuff with the muscle cars. Like I have as you know, a 2017 Mustang, but they changed the body style completely in 2015. So the 2010 Mustang is more like that Challenger, and it's butt ugly, and it's boxy, and it's gigantic. And
Hmm.
they also just weren't really made as well. They didn't the features weren't as nice, and so they didn't handle as easily. So they've all really stepped up their game in the last few years. But yeah, he was, I think you're absolutely spot on. He's like, that's representative of him getting into like the now, like, hey, this is like the muscle car of the future. Like this is what I'm doing now.
Right. Yeah.
That's my
So,
spiel about that.
and I
I would
think
not take
because
a
of that,
2010 Mustang, but I would take the 2017.
well, and I think, like leaving it on that, it just ends on this like really sad note.
Yeah.
Not even bittersweet. It's just like there's something really off here.
Mhm.
Uh
Totally.
and I don't know if Dean totally feels it yet. I think he's a little I think he feels something's off, but he's not sure what.
Mhm.
Um but yeah, I mean that's how it ends. Oof.
Yeah, ugh. I don't know. I Like I said at the beginning, I'm still like kind of trying to decide where I fall on all of this.
Mhm.
Um but so far I can't get a handle on Sam. Something is wrong with him. um
Mhm.
and I feel bad for Dean because he's kind of being thrown back into all of this and doesn't have his Sam, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, I just kind of cuz I'm like looking ahead a bit at where we go in season 6.
Mhm.
And I feel like they're like by season but I'm sorry, by episode 3 we get back into like the supernatural that we know a little bit more perhaps, and it's just odd to me though that they would start it out this way,
Uh-huh.
um and I wonder if they started it out this way and then they got feedback and were like, okay, yeah, that didn't work very well, so let's go this other way. I don't
Oh,
really
really?
know. I don't know. I that's just me, saying stuff. Just because like it's just it feels like they were trying something super different by like having the Campbells, and it just didn't work. It just didn't work for me. I think they needed a little bit more to tie into the world that we know.
Yeah.
That being said, I know what they're doing with Sam, and because I do recall that, and I will say, even though I think for a lot of people this is not their favorite Sam, I really like this Sam. I actually really like season 6 Sam.
Okay.
Um, but a lot of people don't, so that's my personal opinion. I like what they're doing with this. I don't think that they do it well though in this episode.
Okay. Yeah, that's interesting to know. I guess I'll see how I feel about him as we go through the season. Um, and as I like understand more what they're trying to do, I think too.
Hmm.
It kind of just comes out of left field. So again, I feel like, I think since I'm seeing it for the first time, I'm kind of having that opinion of someone who had like watched it all for the first time and then they come back after a year break and this is the episode that they get and it just kind of feels like what the hell is this?
Yeah, I agree with you. I think it feels like a disservice to a fan who has watched, this really great season finale, really great season 5 and, previous seasons and episodes, and it doesn't track.
Mhm.
And I think that shows in like where I was looking at the ranking too.
Mm. Yeah, I pulled it up and was kind of looking at it while you were talking. Where are you looking?
So, like I mentioned, I think the first half works really well as far as like Dean and his life and how they represent that. and then it just kind of falls to pieces after that.
Mhm.
So I see it. Okay, so we just re-ranked our pilot. We just talked about that, and so I see the pilot as, I guess I was seeing it as a focal point for this episode. I think the pilot's better than this episode. I
I
I
agree.
even looked back at like, yeah, and I even looked back at like other episodes, uh, first episodes of season openers.
Mhm.
So like for example, the Magnificent Seven didn't really work for us, but I feel like even that works better than this, and so that's why I kept on going back down,
Mhm.
and so I saw the pilot and I was like, okay, pilot works better for me, works better for you apparently. And then the next one after the pilot is Red Sky at Morning. And I was like, okay, maybe I can see it above Red Sky at Morning.
Yeah, because I think
But
after that, we're kind of looking at the ones that it sort of crosses a line into like the uber cheesy that don't work so good.
yeah, yeah, because there's a lot of season one episodes, and then a lot of like the bad, quote unquote, bad episodes.
Mhm. Right.
Mhm. So I was seeing it as the new number 70 underneath the pilot.
Yeah, I could do that.
And it's just like, especially considering how amazing like the season 4 opener was. Season 5 opener was good, not as good as season 4 maybe. But just, and then yeah, you're like just exactly what you said. Just to repeat it, it's like I came back to this. It's a little disappointing, you know?
Yeah, yeah. I watched it the first time and obviously loved the beginning and where it was going and was like, "Oh, hell yeah, this is great."
Hmm.
And then as soon as Sam came back and there was that interaction with them where he was like, "You've been back a year?" I was just kind of like, "What?" It like
Right.
hurt my feelings.
Yeah. Just as much as it hurt Dean's.
Yeah. Yeah, and I can't help but feel the same kind of feeling that I did. I mean, I'm not uh as invested here yet or like as upset as I was, but I've talked about this before with Angel when that show really took a sharp left
Hmm.
and it didn't just hurt my feelings. I was like personally offended and it like pissed me off.
Hmm.
And I couldn't do it anymore. I stopped watching. So I never watched those last few seasons of Angel because Cordelia cut her hair and got fat and had Angel's baby. Cut that out if it's a spoiler for you. I mean, did not have Angel's. He had Angel's son's baby,
Yeah.
not Angel's.
Which is why, like, I just, and then I told you afterwards, like, I think the first time that you brought it up, because it was like, okay, yes, season 4 sucks, but then season 5, it's like they took another sharp, right turn,
Uh
and
huh.
then said, and then it's, oh my God, it's the best season ever. I just love
Yeah.
it so
I
much.
think I just need to skip that entire season.
Yeah, I would say do that, and then just watch the season finale
Okay.
of that season.
Okay. So I really don't feel bad, people, if y'all are like starting Angel or have never seen it before. Like it's you're welcome. Like I'm warning you. Just skip that part.
I would agree. It's bad. It's so bad.
And I wish I had known, that was in high school when it was on and you can't know what's coming. I think that's maybe what's hard for viewers too is that you get something like this and you just feel kind of betrayed and then you can't tell if it's going to improve or what they're going to do next and I just it just lost me
Hmm.
completely as a viewer, which is, not great for them. I'm sure I'm not the only one who stopped watching.
No, probably not.
Like, if there's one, there's probably more.
Yeah,
But this isn't as bad, right? That was a very extreme transgression. And
right. Yeah,
and right now I just kind of feel like it's a little off, and I could see like if how they maybe start losing the trust of some viewers if it keeps kind of going this way and not pulling them back in. But I don't know, man. We're in it for the long haul, so I'm interested to see what changes or what direction we go in.
sure. Yeah, I'm curious to see if we already get like a tonal shift in the next episode.
Mhm.
Well, okay, so before we get there though, that means that Exile on Main Street is going in as a new number 70. And this one's going in the trunk.
Bummer, dude.
So yeah, a bummer for sure. So next episode though is called um Two and a Half Men. I already hate the title because I hate that show.
It's a terrible show.
It's really bad. I don't get it. I'm so sorry if you used to watch it, if you used to like it. I fucking hate it.
Yeah, I did watch some
Um
of that and I never liked it.
no, me neither. uh, yeah, we'll watch this next episode. We'll see how we feel about this one.
Mhm. We sure will. I'm probably going to watch it today, so we'll see
Okay,
shortly.
well, I just a heads up, I don't love this episode, but that's okay. It's okay. Um all right. So, but besides that, I think the only thing that we need to touch on is that we just talked about this and talked about our episodes, the way they come out, and agreed to now start putting out our episodes on Wednesdays.
Yes.
So just a heads up, guys, that this episode, instead of being released next Monday, will be released. I'm sorry, the Two and a Half Men episode, instead of being released next Monday, will be released next Wednesday. And then we're going to be doing a Wednesday show from now on.
Yep. That's correct. This will be our last Monday show.
Yeah. And just because I think it works better for our schedule. Our lives have changed a little bit. So,
Yeah. We need a little more time on the weekends to be able to do things outside of work, and not have to do all of our recording and editing and posting and everything all in like a weekend or one day before Monday.
yeah. So, just a heads up on that. But otherwise, you guys can find us um, where you can usually find us on our blog at www.highwaytohellpodcast.com. You guys can follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Highway to Hell Podcast. Um, I was just kind of reminded, hey, we have shirts, which you can find through the merch link on our blog as well on our website. So I wear this shirt a lot. It's really comfy, actually, the cotton, and it's got a really cute Impala driving through some spooky hills, and it says Highway to Hell podcast. So it's pretty cool. You guys check it out there. And that's pretty much it. We already got an email about season 6 that we're saving for the wrap up episode because it talks about season 6 as a whole. So just an FYI to that person. Thank you for sending that in, but we're going to save your thoughts until the end of season 6.
Yes. And also,
But
thank you for titling the email that there were spoiler alerts and I was not to read it, so I did not open it. Thank you.
right. Um Also, I love that it said the one who hasn't watched because our names are probably really confusing.
Whichever Christine/Kristen who hasn't watched season 6.
Right. But yeah, if you guys want to send us your thoughts about this episode, how, the first time you watched it, how did you feel? What was your reaction? We would love to hear your thoughts about that. And you guys can send that to the email highway to hell podcasts at gmail.com. So please send us your thoughts. But that's it. I guess until next time, we'll see you on the highway to hell. Bye.
Bye.